Welcome to the Behind Story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a crazy story. Let's jump right in. I should have known today was going to be a disaster the moment I stepped outside and saw the lawn chair situation. It wasn't the usual picturesque morning by my pool. No birds chirping peacefully, no gentle breeze rolling off the lake. No, instead, there was a woman middle-aged, over-tanned, draped in some ridiculous floral beach cover-up lounging in my chair, sipping what I could only assume was my lemonade, while her kid splashed happily in my private pool. I froze in sheer disbelief. My sunscreen bottle and sunglasses, which had been neatly placed on the chair earlier, were now unceremoniously dumped onto the ground, like discarded trash. The audacity was so extreme, so mind-bogglingly absurd, that for a split second, I actually questioned if I had accidentally wandered onto someone else's property. But no, this was my backyard, my pool, my lounge chair, and that was my lemonade. For a moment, I simply stood there, mouth slightly open, trying to process what in the actual hell I was looking at. Who does this? Who walks onto someone else's property, sits in their chair, and jumps into their pool like they own the place? I cleared my throat, forcing my voice into a tight but polite tone. Excuse me, can I help you? The woman who I will henceforth call Karen, because of course she was a Karen, looked up lazily from behind her oversized sunglasses, completely unfazed, and said, "Oh, is this your house?" Like I was the intruder here. Like I was the one crashing her resort day. I blinked, trying to stay calm. Yes, this is my property. Karen made a show of looking around, like she was verifying my claim, before waving her hand dismissively. Oh, well, the lake is freezing today, and my son really wanted to swim. You don't mind, right? I don't mind? I don't mind? I could actually feel my brain short-circuiting. Yeah, I said, my voice now sharp as a blade. I do mind. You're trespassing. Get out of my pool. Karen's jaw dropped, as if I had just slapped her across the face. Wow, she said, her voice laced with theatrical offense. You don't have to be so rude. I was just trying to do something nice for my son. He's having such a good time. I turned to the kid, who was still splashing around, completely oblivious. Hey, buddy, time to get out. This isn't a public pool. Big mistake, Karen exploded. How dare you talk to my child like that? He's just a little boy. You're scaring him. Scaring him? The kid hadn't even noticed me until his mother screeched like a banshee. But now, thanks to her dramatic performance, the boy looked between us, his lower lip quivering, not because of me, but because his mother was making a scene. I exhaled, pinching the bridge of my nose. Look, I don't care how cold the lake is. That doesn't give you the right to break into my yard and use my things. Karen's eyes narrowed. I didn't break in. The gate wasn't locked. Oh, so that's how it works. That's the logic? If a door isn't locked, it's fair game. So if I walked into her house and made a sandwich, would she just nod and say, "Oh well, guess you were hungry"? I took a deep breath. You and your son need to leave. Now. Instead of moving, Karen crossed her arms, as if I was the unreasonable one. You're being incredibly selfish. I bet you never even used this pool. That's when I realized she actually believed she was in the right. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. This wasn't an accident. This was entitlement in its purest, most revolting form. This woman genuinely thought she had the right to decide how I used my own property. That's when I stopped being nice. You have 10 seconds to get out before I call the cops. Karen's entire demeanor shifted. The haughty, fake-smiling, sunglasses perched on nose condescension melted into raw, raging indignation. Call the cops? On a mother and child? You're seriously going to traumatize my son because you won't let a little boy swim? She whipped around to her kid. Come on, honey, let's go before this mean man makes a scene. I gaped at her. Before I make a scene, lady, you've been screeching loud enough to scare the birds away for the last 5 minutes. As she gathered her things, knocking over my chair in the process, she turned back to me and delivered the final blow. You should be ashamed. You were clearly raised without kindness. And with that, she stormed off, dragging her kid behind her, flipping me off over her shoulder like I was the villain in this story. I stood there, stunned, as the reality of what just happened settled in. This woman had trespassed, stolen my lemonade, used my property, screamed at me, and still somehow left feeling morally superior. The worst part? I had no doubt she'd be back, because people like Karen never believe they're wrong. So I did the only thing I could. I installed security cameras. I should have known she'd come back. People like Karen never just walk away. They don't take no for an answer. They don't learn their lesson. And above all, they don't believe rules apply to them. So when I walked outside the next afternoon and saw her and her kid back in my pool, acting like yesterday's confrontation had never happened, I nearly blacked out from sheer rage. There she was again, stretched out on my lounge chair, this time with an actual picnic basket next to her, sipping what I could only assume was another one of my drinks. Her son was floating on a large inflatable, looking entirely too comfortable for a child who had been explicitly told less than 24 hours ago that this was not his pool. I stood there for a full 5 seconds, trying to process the sheer audacity of the scene before me. Then, in a voice that was already on the verge of cracking with disbelief, I said, "Are you actually serious right now?" Karen lifted her sunglasses and, I kid you not, smiled at me like I was the one being ridiculous. "Oh, hello again," she chirped, like we were old friends, and this wasn't a blatant act of trespassing. Beautiful day, isn't it? I felt my soul leave my body. "What the hell are you doing?" I demanded, marching toward her. "I told you yesterday that this is private property. You're trespassing. Again." She had the nerve to sigh dramatically, like I was an overreacting parent scolding a toddler for drawing on the walls. "Well," she said, adjusting her ridiculous floppy sun hat, "I talked to my husband about it, and we both agreed that you were being unreasonable yesterday. So I thought I'd give you a chance to reconsider. A chance to reconsider. Like I had made a suggestion rather than stated an unbreakable fact." I stared at her, my brain actively rejecting reality. "You thought," I stopped myself, shaking my head so hard, I nearly snapped my own neck. "No, no, absolutely not. Get out of my pool, get off my property, and don't come back." Her smile disappeared in an instant. She set down her drink, sat up straighter, and tilted her chin like a queen addressing a peasant. "I don't understand why you're being so selfish," she said, crossing her arms. "My son loves swimming here, and you have more than enough room. It's not like you're even using it all the time." It took every ounce of self-control I had not to start screaming. "That is not how private property works," one snapped. "Just because I'm not using something at this exact moment doesn't mean it's up for grabs. Do you let people walk into your house and start making sandwiches just because you're not eating at that moment?" Karen actually had the gall to look offended. "That's completely different," she said, her voice full of condescension. "A home is private. This is just a pool. It's a luxury, not a necessity. And honestly, it's a little elitist of you to keep it all to yourself." Elitist. I almost burst a blood vessel. "I'm done with this conversation," I said through gritted teeth, already pulling my phone from my pocket. "I'm calling the cops." And that's when Karen snapped. "How dare you?" she shrieked, launching off the lounge chair like some kind of possessed harpy. "You're seriously going to call the police on a mother and her child? Do you have any idea how that makes you look?" "Yes," I said flatly, like a homeowner protecting his property from a crazy person. She sputtered, literally sputtered, like her brain couldn't decide which insult to throw at me first. Then she went for the nuclear option. "I'll have you arrested for harassment," she screeched. I'll sue you. I have a lawyer. I didn't even bother responding to that one. I just pressed dial and held the phone to my ear. 911. What's your emergency? Karen's face did a full 180-degree transformation, from self-righteous fury to genuine panic. No, 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 she said, suddenly waving her hands like she could undo everything. We don't need to involve the authorities. Let's just talk about this like reasonable adults. Oh, now you want to be reasonable? I said, giving her the blankest stare I could manage. After breaking into my yard twice? After drinking my stuff? After telling me I'm elitist for owning something you feel entitled to? I turned back to the dispatcher. Yeah, hi. I have a trespasser in my backyard refusing to leave. Karen's jaw hit the floor. Her precious little angel, meanwhile, had finally clued in that something was wrong. He scrambled out of the pool, grabbing his towel with big nervous eyes. Mom? Karen whipped around to him, her face red. Get your things. We're leaving. Oh, now she wanted to leave. I didn't say another word. I just watched as she hurriedly packed up her picnic like a raccoon caught in a garbage can. As she stormed past me, she hissed, "This isn't over." I almost laughed in her face. By the time the cops arrived, she was long gone. But that didn't matter. I had security camera footage, clear as day, of her breaking in, swimming, and losing her mind when I confronted her. The officers took my statement, and I handed over the footage, knowing full well that Karen had just dug her own grave. And I wish I could say that was the last of it. But people like Karen, they don't quit. I should have known it wasn't over. Karen wasn't the type to accept defeat. She wasn't the type to back down, to slink away in shame, or to realize that, just maybe, she was in the wrong. No, people like her people so wrapped up in their own entitlement that reality bends around them always come back. And she did. It started with the HOA letter. Now, I don't live in an HOA community. That was a very deliberate choice when I bought this house, specifically to avoid dealing with the kind of power-hungry suburban despots who thrive on making their neighbors' lives miserable over mailbox color violations and trash can placement. But somehow, Karen had found a loophole. I opened the letter one morning, sipping my coffee, expecting some routine spam mail. Instead, I nearly choked when I saw the headline, "Community Complaint. Private pools must be accessible for public use." I had to sit down. My hands were shaking from pure, unfiltered rage. The letter, filled with legalese nonsense, argued that because my property was adjacent to a public lake, the pool was a community amenity and therefore subject to public access regulations. Karen. Of course it was Karen. I clenched the paper so hard I nearly tore it in half. This wasn't just petty revenge. This was psychotic. She had actually gone out of her way to file a complaint, trying to legally force me to let the public, her specifically, use my private property. I marched straight to the local office, fists clenched, letter in hand, ready for war. The meeting from hell. The office was exactly what I expected, a soulless, fluorescent-lit nightmare of bureaucracy. I walked up to the front desk, slapping the letter down, with a force that made the receptionist flinch. "I need to speak to whoever sent this," I said, barely restraining myself from growling. The receptionist, a poor, exhausted-looking woman who had probably dealt with Karen before, sighed and pointed me toward an office door labeled Community Affairs Director. I swung it open without knocking, and there she was, Karen, sitting primly across the desk from some balding, defeated-looking official, smiling like she had already won. "Oh," she said, smirking, "I thought you'd be stopping by." I slammed the letter down on the desk between us. "This is insane. My pool is not public property. It's not even part of an HOA. Karen tilted her head, feigning innocent confusion. "Oh, but it's so close to the lake. I just thought it was unfair to keep such a beautiful amenity all to yourself when the community could benefit." Benefit? Benefit? The only person trying to benefit from this lunacy was her. The official, who clearly wanted to be anywhere but here, cleared his throat. Well, mister, my last name, while your property is technically private, the local ordinances do allow for shared access agreements. I cut him off. This is not happening. Karen gave a dramatic sigh. Well, that's unfortunate, but don't worry. I've already spoken to some of the other neighbors, and they're very interested in signing a petition to have your pool designated as a recreational feature for the community. I swear, my vision actually blurred from rage. You think a petition is going to make me open my private property to strangers? I asked, barely restraining my voice from shaking. Karen's smirk widened. Oh, I think it'll put enough pressure on you to do the right thing. Oh, that's how she wanted to play it? Public pressure? Neighborhood shaming? I grinned. Oh, Karen, I said, leaning forward, voice dripping with mock sweetness. You must have really hated what happened when I called the cops on you. Her face twitched. Oh, I continued. That little trespassing incident. The one caught on security cameras. The one that the police now have on file. Karen's smirk faltered. Just a little. I turned to the official. You should know that she has a history of illegally entering my property, and that I have multiple police reports filed against her. The man straightened in his seat. Is that true? Karen flashed him a tight smile. That was all. Just a misunderstanding. I pulled out my phone and, in full view of both of them, played the security footage of her breaking in, throwing my stuff on the ground, drinking my lemonade, and screaming at me like a banshee. The official went pale. Karen shot out of her chair. That's private footage. You can't just… Sure I can, I said. And you know who else can see it? Every single one of your neighbors, when I send it to them. Her entire face drained of color. I smiled wider. And the police, when I file another trespassing charge. There was a long, glorious silence. Then Karen grabbed her purse and stormed out so fast you'd think she was running from a crime scene. Because she was. The official cleared his throat awkwardly. Well, I think we can, disregard this complaint. Good call, I said, turning on my heel and walking out. Hashtag the fallout, the best part? Karen had completely shot herself in the foot. Her petition fell apart overnight once I sent the video to every single resident in the neighborhood. Neighbors who had previously tolerated her suddenly wanted nothing to do with her. And, cherry on top, she got hit with another trespassing citation. For weeks afterward, every time I saw her in public, she looked like she had swallowed a lemon whole. She couldn't even make eye contact with me. And best of all, she never set foot near my pool again. I thought I had finally won. After the HOA stunt blew up in her face, after I sent out the security footage to every neighbor within a 5-mile radius, and after she was slapped with yet another trespassing charge, I was sure Karen had learned her lesson. I had underestimated her, because somehow, despite all logic and reason, she managed to take it even further. The unwanted guests. It started with strangers. One Saturday morning, I walked outside, expecting nothing but the peaceful serenity of my Karen-free backyard. Instead, I found a group of random people standing by my pool. A family. A father, mother, and 2 kids. I stood there, gripping my coffee mug so hard I thought it would shatter. They had towels. They had pool toys. And they looked incredibly confused. The father gave me an awkward smile. Oh, hey there. We're just getting ready to swim. I blinked. My brain actually stuttered, like an engine trying to turn over in the dead of winter. You're just… What? The mother glanced at her phone. Is this not the community pool? My soul left my body. What community pool? I asked, my voice eerily calm, because I already knew the answer. I just needed to hear it out loud. The father held up his phone and showed me a Facebook post. A Facebook post from Karen. It read, "Exciting news. Our wonderful neighborhood now has a beautiful, fully stocked pool available for public use. Bring your family, bring your kids, and enjoy some summer fun." No need to ask for permission, just show up and enjoy. Complete with pictures of my backyard, my backyard, my backyard. The mother must have seen the expression on my face because she took a nervous step backward. Oh, this isn't? I took a deep, bone-cracking breath. No, it is not. The father let out a strangled laugh. Oh, wow. Okay. Well, this is embarrassing. I guess we'll just... I held up a hand. 1 second. Do you have her phone number? The couple exchanged wary glances, and then the mother slowly nodded. Would you mind calling her right now? She hesitated, but eventually pressed the button and put it on speaker. It rang. And rang. And then, hello, this is Karen. She sounded cheerful, too cheerful. Like a woman who had no idea that she was about to have her entire life obliterated. The mother cleared her throat. Hi. So we're at the pool right now, but, oh, wonderful. Karen cut in. I hope the kids are having fun. We're really proud to finally have a shared space for the community. Let me know if you need anything. The level of audacity was physically painful. I leaned into the phone, my voice as sharp as a knife against glass. Hey, Karen. Guess who? The silence on the other end was delicious. Then a nervous laugh. Oh, it's you. Yeah, it's me. And I have a question. More silence. I could practically hear her brain running through excuses. Why are there random strangers in my backyard? Because of a post you made on Facebook. Oh, she said quickly. Too quickly. That was just a misunderstanding. I thought you might change your mind about sharing the pool, so I just, put some feelers out. Put some feelers out. I ran a hand down my face, fighting every urge to drive straight to her house and dunk her into a pool filled with actual sharks. Karen, I said, my voice dangerously calm, delete the post right now. And if I so much as see a single person even look in the direction of my yard, I am pressing full legal charges against you. A pause. Then the sound of a phone screen tapping rapidly. Done. See? All fixed. No harm, no foul. No harm, no foul. I ended the call without another word. The family, who looked beyond mortified, gathered their things and left, apologizing profusely. I was still seething when I stomped back inside and opened my laptop. If Karen thought for even a second that she could pull this and walk away unscathed, she was in for a rude awakening. The final strike, Karen might have deleted the post, but I had screenshots, and I knew exactly where to send them. First, I sent the evidence straight to the police, adding in her history of trespassing and harassment. Then, I forwarded it to our entire neighborhood group chat with a simple caption, PSA. If you saw Karen's post about my community pool, please be advised that this was a complete lie, and she had absolutely no permission to send people to my property. Trespassers will be prosecuted. The fallout was instantaneous. Neighbors turned on her like a pack of wild dogs. Her Facebook blew up with angry comments from families she had duped. And, best of all, I got a call from her landlord. Yes, her landlord. Because Karen, in all her entitled glory, was renting. And the landlord? Not thrilled about the sudden flood of complaints. Not thrilled about the police involvement. And definitely not thrilled when I sent him the trespassing footage. Within 2 weeks, she was evicted. Gone. Vanished. Like a bad dream that finally ended. And my pool, blissfully, Karen-free. I should have known it wasn't over. Sure, Karen had been evicted. Her social standing in the neighborhood was obliterated. The police had a thick file on her, and I had won. But people like Karen, they don't just disappear. They fester. They scheme. They find new ways to make life miserable. And Karen? Oh, she found a way. I just wasn't ready for how insanely stupid it would be. Hashtag the return of the Queen of Entitlement. It started with a knock at my door. A week had passed since her eviction. A glorious week of peace. No trespassing. No entitled screaming. No random strangers showing up expecting a community pool. So when I heard the knock, I didn't think much of it. Probably a delivery. Maybe a neighbor dropping off mail by mistake. I opened the door, and there she was, Karen, standing on my porch, like she hadn't been kicked out of the neighborhood in disgrace, like she hadn't tried to steal my pool, like she belonged here. I stared at her, stunned. I had expected many things in my life, but I had never expected this woman to have the nerve to show her face again. "Hello," she said, all fake pleasantries and forced smiles. "I just wanted to have a little chat." I blinked. A chat. My brain was screaming at me to slam the door, but I had to know. I had to hear what kind of psychotic reasoning had brought her back here. So, against my better judgment, I stepped onto the porch, arms crossed. "You've got 30 seconds before I call the cops," she gasped, one hand on her chest like I had just threatened her life. "There's no need for that. I'm just here with a business opportunity." A business opportunity. Oh, this was going to be good. The pitch from hell Karen clasped her hands together like she was about to sell me a timeshare. "I've been thinking," she said, tilting her head in that condescending way that made me want to flip my own porch over. Clearly, there was some miscommunication about the pool situation. I clenched my jaw so hard I thought my teeth would crack. Trespassing is not a miscommunication. She waved a dismissive hand. Potato, potato. The point is, it's obvious there's a demand for a nice community pool in this neighborhood. I did not like where this was going. "So," she continued, grinning, "I came up with an idea. I think you and I should go into business together." I almost choked on my own spit. "What?" She nodded eagerly, like she had just come up with the cure for cancer. "I propose we turn your backyard into a members-only pool club," she said, eyes bright with pure delusion. "You let people use the pool. I'll handle the marketing and membership fees, and we'll split the profits, 50-50. I stared at her. I stared at her so hard, I think I forgot how to blink. Because this woman, this actual lunatic, had been evicted from her home for pulling this exact same stunt, and now she wanted to turn my backyard into her business venture? I laughed. I actually laughed. It wasn't a normal laugh. It was a sharp, borderline, insane laugh, because my brain had finally reached a level of absurdity overload that it just couldn't process anymore. "Karen," I said, wiping a fake tear from my eye, "you do realize that I hate you, right?" She faltered, but only for a second. "That's just because you're still upset," she said, like I was a child throwing a tantrum. "But think about it. We could make so much money. People would love to have a nice, clean pool without having to go all the way to a public facility. And you wouldn't even have to do anything. Just exist." I inhaled deeply through my nose, and then I smiled. "Karen," I said sweetly, "I have a better business idea." She perked up. "Oh? Yes," I said, stepping closer. "I call it trespassing charges." Her smile vanished. "See," I continued, grinning wider, "the way it works is, you step 1 foot on my property again, and I press every single charge I legally can against you. Then I sue you for harassment. Then I take those screenshots of your Facebook post, send them to every single rental agency in the city, and make sure you never get approved for a lease again." Karen's face turned red. Her mouth opened and closed, like a fish desperately trying to gulp air. You wouldn't," she stammered. I took another step closer, lowering my voice. "I absolutely would." Silence. And then finally, after what felt like an eternity, she backed away, her jaw clenched, her fists shaking, and for a second, I thought she was going to start screeching. But then she just huffed. "You're making a huge mistake," she snapped. "I was trying to help you." I tilted my head. "By committing felony-level harassment?" She spun on her heel and stomped down my driveway, muttering something about how I was throwing away a golden opportunity. I didn't close the door until I saw her get into her car and drive far, far away. The fallout again. I did exactly what I promised. I sent her face and info to every rental agency in the area. I filed an official restraining order. And, just to drive the point home, I put up a massive private property trespassers will be prosecuted sign next to my pool, complete with security cameras covering every inch of my yard. And Karen, never saw her again. She tried to start a new Facebook group, rallying people against me, but with zero credibility. She was laughed off the internet. And me? I sat by my pool, sipping my lemonade, basking in the Karen-free bliss of victory, because some people never learn. But I always win. I should have known she wouldn't stay gone. For weeks, life was blissfully Karen-free. No entitled screaming, no random families mistaking my backyard for a public pool, no HOA nonsense, just peace and quiet, the way it was supposed to be. And then, one night, my security cameras picked up movement. At first, I thought it was an animal, a raccoon maybe, a stray cat. But when I checked the live feed from my phone, my stomach dropped. It wasn't an animal. It was Karen, the midnight heist I watched, dumbfounded, as she crept through my backyard like a cartoon villain. She was wearing all black, leggings, hoodie, even a baseball cap. She had a bag slung over her shoulder, and she was moving toward my pool equipment with clear intent. I stared at the screen, heart pounding. What the hell was she doing? Then I saw it. She pulled out a wrench. The realization hit me like a truck. She was trying to disable my pool pump. I had seen a lot from Karen, but this was next-level insanity. I was already grabbing my keys when she started unscrewing something. I didn't care what she thought she was doing. This wasn't just trespassing anymore. This was destruction of property. And I was done playing nice. Hashtag the confrontation. I stepped outside, floodlights snapping on as I threw open the door. Hey! Karen froze mid-wrench, looking like a deer caught in headlights. For a second, she just stared at me, mouth slightly open, before she dropped the wrench and bolted. Oh, no, not this time. I took off after her, cutting across the yard just as she reached the fence. She scrambled, trying to climb it, but she was not athletic enough for that. I grabbed her wrist. What the hell do you think you're doing? She shrieked, yanking her arm away. Let go of me. This is illegal. I laughed. Actually laughed in her face. Illegal? You just broke into my yard in the middle of the night with a wrench. She straightened, breathing heavily, and then she did the most Karen thing possible. She crossed her arms and glared at me like I was the problem. You left me no choice, she snapped. I blinked. What? Karen huffed. You wouldn't let the community use the pool. You ruined my business opportunity. You got me evicted. My jaw nearly hit the floor. I got you evicted? I repeated, incredulous. You mean when you lied to the entire neighborhood about my property and tried to turn my backyard into a public pool against my will? Karen rolled her eyes. Oh, please. You've just been selfish from the beginning. Selfish. This woman broke into my yard, tried to sabotage my property, and somehow I was the selfish one. I pinched the bridge of my nose, forcing myself to take a deep breath. Karen, why are you here? She threw up her hands. I just wanted to make sure you didn't get to enjoy your stupid pool if no one else could. My vision blurred from sheer rage. I pulled out my phone and tapped the screen, showing her the security footage in real time. Smile for the cops, Karen. Her face drained of color. The fallout again. The police were not amused. By the time they arrived, Karen was a sobbing mess, trying to spin some ridiculous story about how she was just checking the pool for safety issues. It didn't work. Between the security footage, the trespassing record, and the fact that she literally had tools in her hand, she was arrested on the spot. Trespassing, attempted vandalism, breaking and entering. I made sure to press every possible charge. And Karen, she finally learned a lesson. She moved out of state after that. No one saw her again. Her name became a cautionary tale in the neighborhood, a legend of delusional entitlement gone too far. And me? I installed even more security cameras because if there's one thing I learned from all of this, it's that people like Karen, they never know when to quit.